Hey friends, guess what? It's Wednesday, and that means it's Ask a Flower Farmer. And it's your friend, Lisa Mason Ziegler, and I'm super glad to be here because it's pretty chilly here in Virginia. Even though Bobo is out weeding the cool flower garden, she's over there suiting up, but it's sun is shining, so it's really, really nice. So glad to be here with all of you guys. And so what is Ask a Flower Farmer if you're new? This happens once a week at 12:30 right here on Gardener's Workshop Instagram account. And we spend about 30 minutes, and I will answer your questions about everything from flower farming, cool flowers, seed starting, whatever you got, bring it on. And if you'd like for me to answer a question or to attempt, put it in the little bubble at the bottom of the screen that has the question mark in it. That way I won't have to scroll through everybody's name and perhaps miss your question. So y'all load your questions up down there. And while that's happening, friends, I have so many things to share with you today. We have brought back so many of our favorite products. And I just want to point out, first off, I'm going to roll out of the way and let you look at what's behind me. So this is our new tabletop grow light that is 4 feet long, and it will support up to like 700 of the small blockers. I mean, y'all, have you ever seen a more beautiful tray of Billy Balls, Craspedia? How beautiful are they? So we have a new model of 2-foot and 4-foot lights. They're a little different. They're actually, they support twice as many plants as our other light that we've carried for so many years. And they're super easy to put together. I mean, I'm so in love with this light. You can put this on a counter. It's about 20 inches wide, so it'll fit on a standard kitchen countertop. And it's easy to put together, easy to adjust. And its footprint is twice as wide. So that means that you can put one of our green extra large trays under it and support the whole thing. And as you can see, there's a bunch across there. So I'm just going to give you the run through of some other new products. You'll see not all of them are loaded onto our website yet. They're coming out in the next day or so. Guess what, y'all? Are you ready? We have blocking mix back. Ready-made blocking mix. We have brought back Vermont Compost, Fort V, in the 6-quart bag and the 20-quart bag. It has to be sifted, which is what we've always done. And you know, that's the one we started with 100 years ago. That's the one Elliot Coleman uses. You know, the person that I learned everything I know about soil blocking from, right? So look for that. Kelly will be getting that loaded onto the website in the next day or so. And we're super excited about that. And y'all, guess what else? I mean, that's why I just got to tell y'all this. You have to go check it out. We now have fungus gnat control back. It's a different type. Works a little bit differently, but it's the exact same ingredient. It's just it's in granules instead of powder. So you can find mosquito bits over on our website. And we now have this new smaller foam tray. These are reusable foam trays, right? A set of 20 of the small blockers. This is what we use for like tomatoes and those things that we don't start 40, 60, or 100 or 240 of, right? So you'll find these on the website, and we reuse them forever. And then I think the soil is the most exciting thing, but this is almost as exciting. We are now offering the Bio 360 biodegradable film in 100-foot pieces. And that's not all, y'all. This is being rolled on our new machine that does it, and it actually rolls it onto a plastic sleeve, which means it is so easy for you to unroll it at home. What we do is put 2 cinder blocks, then we get a pipe or a broom handle or something that's skinny and long enough, and you just feed it through the Bio 360, put it on the cinder blocks, and you can pull it out. It is so easy to use. So you'll find that over on our website and actually our phone app store. So we're so excited to be bringing back, you know, after the pandemic really messed up a lot of chain of supply and just a lot of craziness. And then this is the last thing I'm going to say, and I see we have 20 questions. I guess I better hop to it. Y'all, my book is in sight. The container has arrived, and it'll take them about 10 days to get it to us. Then it'll take us a few days to get them out. But I'm just so excited to say that it's on U.S. soil. And so here's what you need to know. If you have not pre-ordered my book and you want the bonus of the Cool Flowers Zone Guide, which is a freebie only when you pre-order my book, you get it immediately on your confirmation. That ends the minute we get the books in stock. That means we're no longer pre-ordering, right? So you can just actually comment book here, and that will automatically DM you here in Instagram the link directly to get my book. So pre-order if you want that Cool Flower Zone Guide. And then we will, after the books get here, I mean, there's pallets and pallets and pallets, y'all. I'm going to be signing books till the cows come home. Thank you so much. We are so overwhelmed with gratitude. My publisher is about to lose their mind over it. And thank you all so much, because y'all are the reason that we just have thousands of books pre-ordered, and that is just so unheard of, right? In the gardening world especially. And we're just so grateful, so ever grateful. And if any of you have any connections with, I'm looking for a UK, United Kingdom, influencers. They already have the book in their warehouse in the UK. And I have a couple of friends that I've sent on to our publisher. But if any of you have any connections to anybody in the UK that has a podcast or social media, please DM me and let me know about that. All right, y'all, let's look at these questions. So Tucker is here with me. Come here, boy. All right, let's see what y'all got. Victoria, just north of Charlotte, North Carolina. Can I start zinnia seeds now? What a great question. Heck no, Victoria. So it's way too soon. Zinnias, you only start them about 2 or so weeks before it's time to plant them out. And you, like me, your frost date at the very earliest would be April 15th. And you might even be a little bit dependent on, I can't remember if Charlotte's mountainous or not. Anyway, so it's way too early. So we don't even starting our warm season stuff until we're well into March. And then it's the end of March when we actually start our zinnia seeds. So I hope that helps. How tall do my cool flower transplants need to be transplanted out? So that's a great question too. So in general, as a general guideline, 3 to 5 inches is a good size. Let's see, is there anything back here? These are almost barking up the tree. These are straw flowers, y'all. I have 7 trays of these, y'all, all the different colors. We're so excited for them. All right, so straw flowers don't grow tall, but their leaves grow from like the base. So I'm gonna be looking, these are probably gonna go probably another, we start planting in mid-February. So these have yet another 7 to 10 days to actually grow up. So you're looking for either a 3 to 5 inch tall transplant, or in this case, like a 3 to 5 inch leaf, so that your plant has a little bit of substance when it goes out there. And see, when we do the very early spring planting, this time of the year, they have to have a little bit of substance, right, to face the cold. I mean, of course, you should harden them off, and that means to sit outside in the conditions they'll be planted into with a little bit more control for at least a week, right? Or if you're gonna hoop and row cover them as soon as you plant them, you can actually do that stage out in the garden. So 3 to 5 inches, because they're going to start growing, unlike fall planted, that you plant them and then the green just sits there all winter, right? It's not going to grow in. Well, we're heading straight into spring, y'all. I mean, my hellebore patch is like crazy blooming, right? I mean, spring is knocking at our door, and our February gold daffodils are blooming. So 3 to 5 is my go-to in general. I'm a home gardener. Do you have suggestions for seed blocking trays when only needing a few blocks? So, that smaller tray that I just showed you is a start, because it's just easier to care for seedlings when they're on their own block, on their own tray, which means you can move them off the heat as soon as they germinate. You don't have to scoop them up with a spatula or anything and perhaps damage the little blocks. So those they're like 5 by 5 or 5.5 by 5.5. So I will tell you in my practice, so let's just say I only need 5 of something. First off, I always start twice as many seeds as plants I need. That's your backup plan. That's your insurance plan. What do you do with the extras? We compost them. Their purpose is insurance. It's just like why we put a seatbelt on, just in case, or why we have insurance, just in case. You need to do that with your transplants. So I always start twice as many. So if I'm going to start, and I need 5 of, say, peppers. I'm not a pepper eater. My husband is, though. We do not need 20 jalapeno peppers. He might argue with that, though. Anyway, so I want 5 plants, but I'll start 10. So I'll actually make the 20 cluster 3/4 inch small blocks, and then I'll sow my 10 seeds, and I just leave all the blocks together. And then so there's 10 of them that are empty, because I find that the blocks support each other, whether it's retaining moisture, and so I don't remove the unsown blocks in those types of circumstances. So I hope that helps. If I put row cover over my transplants when I move them outside, can I skip hardening off? So I think I just answered that, but to just back that up, yes, you can for cool season hardy annuals. I would never do that with warm season, right? Heat is far more harder on transplants than cold ever thought about being. But you need to have hoops. We have those wire pre-arched hoops on our website if you need to have a look at those. And we use the lightweight row cover that's well weighted, just meaning that the cover is pretty secure. So it's blocking wind, which is a really big detriment to small transplants, and make sure it's secured. So yes, if you're going to plant them directly out underneath a hooped row cover, you can actually do the hardening off in the garden, right? Do you have any suggestions for algae growing on soil blocks? Yes, I do, as a matter of fact. First off, algae and mold can only grow in the presence of moisture. That means your blocks are not going through the wet-dry cycle, which should happen in every 24-hour period. So here's my situation here. So I have a grow room. I come out early in the morning. The first thing I do is water my transplants. That's the only time I see them. That's the only time I water them, right? I water them thoroughly. I leave no residual water in the tray. And throughout the day, they're getting drier, they're getting drier, they're getting drier, and then by tomorrow morning, they're dry. And I water them again. By them being dry for half of the day, pretty much, that breaks the cycle of growing stuff, because the stuff that you're growing besides your transplants can only be supported by moisture. So if your blocks are not drying out in a 24-hour cycle, I would recommend checking your conditions. The number one problem that I think people have is the air temperature is too cool. Warming up your air temperature just a little bit, 65 to 70 is what I love for cool season. But we're now heading into the time of the year where that grow room will be bumped up to 75 to 85 degrees. And you need to figure out how to create those conditions, which I think that a really often skipped step in the whole seed starting process that affects everything that you do, but people don't really focus on it. And if you fix it, it makes seed starting a pleasure. That is the conditions that you're starting seeds in. You need to have an indoor growing area that you have a little bit of control over the air temperature. So for me, in my grow room, this building is heated and air conditioned. The grow room is a 10 by 10 room. If I keep the door closed and it has windows and it's southeast facing, which means there's a lot of sun coming in there, if I close that door, it gets so warm in there. Well, I don't close the door when we're starting cool season hardy annuals. I want the door open, and the heat from this room just kind of keeps that at a happy 68, 69 degrees in there. That's perfect. The minute I start warm season tender annuals, we close the door, and that room just gets heated right up. I will also add, as your plants grow more vegetatively on the top of the soil blocks, the mold, and first off, I have never found that mold and algae affect your transplants. You're just growing extra stuff, you know? I just haven't had that to be a problem. But as your transplants start to grow up, you see less and less of that because you have more roots. And I will tell you that also overwatering, which is what is considered if they're not drying out, stunts root growth because roots need as much oxygen as it does water. And oxygen can only get in there when the blocks are pretty, not completely dry, but not having a lot of water in there. So the number one problem, it's a vicious cycle, right? If you aren't drying out, your plants aren't growing very fast. They're pretty stunted, which means they're never going to start drinking more and drying them out faster, right? So the air temperature is really important. So creating that in your space, and then to create an outdoor space that is safe to harden your transplants off. I started out with just a carport, and I found that the wind rolling in from our field was so hard on transplants. So we put up a 4-foot decorative cedar fence on 2 sides of the carport, so it's a wind block. And now I have like this perfect spot. If a storm comes, I still have problems. I have to bring my stuff back in, but taking the steps now to think about what can you do to shore up a better hardening off place so you don't have to worry about them. You don't have to go back and check on them because, friends, nobody can do that all the time. And it only takes one time to lose everything. So that is my take on growing algae and mold. What are your top 10 flowers for beginner flower farmers? There's that's a loaded question. First off, I am 100% an annual grower. With the exception, I do grow peonies because I have my grandmother's, a big, huge old line of 100-foot bed of peonies. But basically, we grow all annuals. Annuals are low investment, high return. If y'all haven't listened to the Growing for Market podcast that came out yesterday, it was about my new book, but we talk a lot about a lot of this kind of stuff. It's a really great podcast. I recommend growingformarket.com. You can find it on your favorite podcast app. It's posted here on social media. It's all over the place. Anyway, it depends on what season you're talking about. As a go-to quick reference, my book, Vegetables Love Flowers, which is really a book about a 3-season cutting garden, y'all. I have my 10 favorite warm and 10 favorite cools. And so you now, assuming you're in the United States, we're headed into warm. It's too late for most people to start cool season hardy annuals. You've missed your window. So now you're preparing for warm stuff. So warm. And it's those go-to annuals, which are outlined in that book and everything about it, the varieties, and how we start them, the whole 9 yards. All right, if you get too much water in the tray, what's the best way to get it out? If I tip the tray, the soil blocks start to fall apart. So that's 2 separate problems. I don't know what blocking mix you're using. If you're doing the recipe that, we use L8 Coleman's recipe, which is always on our website. And the new, now we have ready-made blocking mix that's coming back online. When you stick with those recipes, what's different about them is that they're very dense and the product binds together really well, unlike regular seed starting mix that has a lot of fluffy stuff in it. Because you need it to be fluffy because it's going into a container and you want air and water to be able to pass through, right? So it may be your soil mix. But frankly, yes, I just actually tipped these before I came in. So if this had too much water, which I do almost all the time, I just gently tilt and tip at the same time and pour the excess water off. But it is really about your blocking mix, right? And you kind of learn how to do that. And once the seedlings start growing more and you get more roots, all of that becomes less of a problem. So check your mix. Oh, and Julie said she's using our recipe. And I tell you, the other thing that might be issue is, I don't know if you're using cocoa fiber or peat moss. I am frankly a peat moss fan. I understand about the sustainability, but actually cocoa fiber has its own sustainability issues, but we use so little of it. That's one of the great things about soil blocking. The volume of mix or blocking mix that you use is so much smaller than what you do like in plug trays and all that kind of stuff. But I find that cocoa fiber often disintegrates and makes mushier soil blocks. So if you were using cocoa fiber, I would definitely try peat moss or try the ready-made mix. Is it necessary to lay drip tape under Bio 360? Will the flowers get enough water through the openings made in the Bio if I don't have drip tape this year? So that's a really great question. And first off, the level of irrigation required has really connected to where you are and what your rainfall is. I live in southeastern Virginia where we almost always have more rain than we could ever think about wanting, right? We get 52 inches a year. Unfortunately, most of them seem to come all at one time. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, so we get a lot of frequent rain here. Water does not go through the Bio 360. Way back when I first started using it, long before I had a tractor, when we were still laying it by hand, they actually had perforated it. You know, it had all these little tiny holes that you couldn't even hardly see, but that really worked. And they don't do that anymore. I'm not sure why, but it was great. So it does not do that anymore. But here's my take on drip tape. If you have not made your bed yet, which I'm taking you haven't, and I assume you're making your beds by hand probably, when you make your beds, instead of making them perfectly flat on the top, make them with a little bit of depression. So this is the middle of the bed where my fingertips are. Making a little bit of a depression in the middle so that when rain or when you use a hose with a wand on it, we water the center of the bed. It runs in the holes and it kind of holds the water so it can slowly seep in. That is a major help. I see people building beds like this. The new book actually talks about this too, with domes on top. Well, oh my gosh, the water just runs off, right? So in my experience, we have definitely used Bio 360 with no irrigation under it when we've run out or for whatever reason. But again, I live in a well-watered area, and if we did need to irrigate, we would use a hose with a wand, and as I just mentioned, we flood the middle of the beds, walk down flooding, walk back up flooding, and that does a really good job. So it is definitely possible. My last frost is March 15th, sometimes a late frost in late March. Can I start my warm season seeds now? So I base all of my seed starting on what we call the last expected historical frost date. Historical frost date means that date is based on data from many, many years. And you can get that off a search engine. Just put in last frost date in your zip code. That's the date that I go with. So you don't have to think back the last couple of 3 years. First off, that's just no way to find, that's just not holding true. And yes, I know the weather is changing, but that's why the historical data is so very, very important. And so it depends on what you're talking about. We start 6 weeks before our last frost date, starting warm season stuff. And then many of them are only 3 weeks before. So you have to know how many weeks it takes you to get a transplant to that size. And I will tell you that I always err on starting later than early. because there is nothing more torturous than growing these gorgeous transplants like I have behind me. I mean, how gorgeous are they, right? Y'all want a closer look? This is a test, cool flower down here. Rudbeckia, straw flowers, Craspedia, better known as Billy Balls. This is Cress Green Dragon. That is that, what is that? That's Persian cress, and that's stock down there. There is nothing worse than starting transplants and watching a gorgeous transplant grow up, and then it stays too cold that you can't plant them. For your case, as a warm season tender annuals. And you just watch them grow and get uglier and sicklier, and there's really nothing you can do to save them except ditch them and start over again. So I would start later than earlier is the moral to my story. I have been on that boat so many times, especially, I tell you, when you totally embrace seasonal outdoor flower farming, as I do, you are so busy with the items of the season, you don't really tend to start stuff early. It's like we can barely get it started on time because we're so consumed with what happened the month before, right? So I'd be putting the brakes and just really finding out your date and then looking at your calendar. Is cress sensitive to root disturbance? I have not found that to be true at all, and I will tell you that for soil blocking, for us, I think that's why I became such a stellar celosia grower, because we do soil block, and they tend to have not real root stress. They just get stunted. They're like Lysianthus. They hold a grudge. If they aren't happy growing and they get root bound in a container, they'll just sit there and never grow again. And I don't know that about cress, but I will say to you, anything that you have that concern about, soil block seed starting almost 100% prevents all of that, because they're not in a container getting wound and wound and wound. You can actually comment blocker here, and I'll DM you a link right to all of our soil blocking equipment and my course and all the stuff. Course is $29. Best deal of a lifetime, y'all. Take you from beginning to end, and blocker is what you would actually comment here. So any of those things that tend to, you hear has that, are resolved because they're not in a container. They don't get wrapped up. They air prune. They will grow into their neighbor if you leave them too long. But I even find when I'm breaking them apart to plant them, that is not the same as having those long, tangly roots. So you should be good to go if you're soil blocking. Do poppies do okay with soil blocking? I've heard they're also sensitive to root disturbance. They will. I mean, I've bought plugs before of Iceland poppies when we needed them for books, and they do fine. Soil blocks would do awesome. The problem is not growing them, it's getting them to germinate, and it's because of the cool conditions. So you really need to give them some cool treatment, which I can't really help you with because I direct sow outside in the fall, because of it gets that varying. That's the problem. They like warm days, cool nights. Just break dormancy to sprout. It's hard to provide that inside, so that's what you need to pay attention to. Genius, thank you. I'm in 7B in Middle Tennessee, and I'm so grateful for your advice. Oh, you're welcome, Sugar Blooms. Another kind of East Coaster person. If this was your first year, how many of each flower would you start with? What an excellent question. First off, I'll try not to preach here, y'all, and it's time for, this is my last question. The number one piece of advice I can give to a new grower is to start so small and go so much slower than you ever think, because you have no idea what you're in store for. And this is not just in flower farming, y'all. That's one of the things that I find so interesting. People, especially people that have grown their businesses and they're really big now, and they've got help and babies and all kinds of stuff. They're like belly aching about how it's so hard. Well, it can be so hard, but it doesn't have to be that hard. And in my opinion, the people that start small and learn how to farm and growing annuals so that if you screw it up, which you will, and you lose stuff, which you will, and you'll have tons of flowers that aren't sold, which you will, not only have you not lost the bank, but it's not so hard on your morale, right? So I recommend starting with annuals, and it depends on where you're planning on selling. That's one of the things I talk about on Growing for Market yesterday on the podcast, was that I was the opposite of the rest of the world. I was a business person first and then a flower farmer. So you can believe I had more customers lined up before I ever had a flower. And so I never had enough flowers for 26 years. And that's a great place to be in. Most people are the complete opposite. They have tons of flowers and nowhere to sell them. And then they're trying to sell old flowers because of that whole situation. So it really depends on where you're going to be selling or what you're thinking. But it is far easier and more successful to grow more of fewer types of flowers. And it's easier to sell that way. It's easier to make bouquets that way. So it just totally depends on your size. So, we're really kind of going through that here on the farm because, we've come down off of being a high production flower farm to a flower farm that now produces for education, for our business, for teaching, for demos, for videoing, all that kind of mess, right? So instead of having, 120-foot bed of just orange Benary's giant zinnias, right? I mean, we used to have 120-foot bed of every color for one succession. I mean, we planted a lot of plants around here, y'all. Now, it's like, all right, do we need 5 feet of a bed? Well, that's what we did last year. And we've decided that 10 feet is a little bit better for us because we want to have enough volume to have good pictures and to make some mixed bouquets. So it just depends on what you're doing. That's but I would say for starting out to grow 10 different flowers and to, break up your space. How many can you fit in your space is where I would really start. I'd rather grow 4 different flowers and more of them than 10 flowers of only 10 each. I mean, anything under 20 or 30 is, really hard to deal with. The results and learn anything, right? All right, friends, we're out of here. So 2 things we're closing up with. If you comment blocker here, that'll get an auto DM to your Instagram account of a link to all of our soul blocking stuff and the lights and the course and all that mess. And if you comment book, can't do them on the same comment, y'all. If you comment book, then it'll DM you the link to my book. And remember, the pre-sale days are numbered, y'all, numbered. The minute we get the book in stock, then we will stop offering the free bonus Cool Flower Zone Guide, which is an immediate download you get when you pre-order through us. All the books that are ordered through us, I sign. They'll come signed, wrapped, and have the additional download of the flowers that didn't make the book, the handbook. And there's 6 of them, and they're really great. There wasn't enough rooms. And on February 29th, I'm doing an Instagram live on my publisher's Instagram, but y'all get notified by my editor. And I can't wait to ask her in the middle of my interview, why didn't you give me more pages? Because that's always the struggle, right? There's never enough room to go around. All right, friends. First off, remember, meet me Friday inside my app. If you don't have my app and you need it, comment app here, APP, and that'll DM the link for you to get it. And join me at 12 o'clock on Friday, right here inside, right here on the farm. And we do all kinds of fun stuff. It's a shopping show, y'all. We demonstrate, we show dried flowers for flowers that we're starting seeds of now and more. We have specials. I give away something every week if you're a live viewer. It's 12 noon Eastern time till 1 on Fridays, and my sister Suzanne co-hosts with me. It's really a lot of fun, and we're taking it to a new level these days. It's really, really a lot of fun. And you can go watch replays also of previous shows once you have the app. All right, friends, until we meet again, remember, we're just rolling out tons of new products. So keep your eye on us. It's all busting loose, y'all. Spring is just around the corner. My new book is around the corner. There's new products around the corner. It's just very, very exciting. And I'm glad that y'all are here with me. And I just want to graciously thank you all again for pre-ordering so many of my books. I don't know how in the heck I am going to sign thousands of books. We have quite a process. The books have to be uncrated and lined up on the table. Then I have to sign them. Then somebody has to put the bookmark in them, which has the QR code, which is for the download that you get when you buy the book from us. Then the book gets wrapped and a sticker gets put on the outside of it. Then it has to be shipped to you. Over and over and over, thousands of times, and we just could not be more grateful. We love you guys so much. All right, friends, see you Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time inside the app, and till we meet again. Ciao.